Whether it is for garment construction, creating a tidy seam, hemming, or adding a decorative edge finish, with the 744's versatility, every project is a breeze. The 744 has 16 built-in programs, a stitch for every type of sewing imaginable, giving you, the sewer, endless possibilities. From the triple cover hem to the safety 4-thread, there's a stitch for every project. Imagine having all the information needed for setup at your fingertips. With the 744, you no longer have to imagine. Choose any one of the built-in stitches, and information such as needle position, differential feed, stitch length, and more are displayed on the program panel for quick and easy setup. And don't forget the automatic tension settings. Whether it's a utility stitch or one of the 3 cover hems, the 744 sets the tension. Let's view some of the basic features before learning to thread your new Elna Serger. Refer to the operator's manual as a reference guide at any time during this tape. Your Elna Serger has a built-in carrying grip, so it's easy to move. The thread antenna guide is detachable. Snap it into position next to the spool pins. The differential feed and stitch length lever are located in front for easy access and use. 5 needle positions accommodate the various overlock and cover hem stitches. Needle positions R1 and R2 refer to the overlock stitches. Needle positions L0, L1, and L2 are used when sewing the chain stitch or one of the 3 cover hem stitches. No more than 3 needles will be used at one time. The tilt needle clamp, an exclusive Elna feature, makes changing needles simple. 3 safety switches have been installed. One switch connects to the safety cover of the needle clamp and the presser foot lever. Another is connected to the needle clamp itself. The machine will not sew if the needle clamp is tilted. The 3rd switch is connected to the front and side doors. The presser foot must be down and the doors must be closed before your 744 will begin sewing. The 744 trims with 2 cutting blades as it sews. The larger movable blade moves up and down and works like a scissors next to the smaller stationary blade. The stationary cutting blade is easy to see here. The stationary blade does not move while sewing, but it can be adjusted slightly to the right or to the left when adjusting the cutting width. The dial is located here and refers to the cutting width position. The cutting widths are visible in the window when the side door is closed. The widths are indicated in millimeters and the most common inch settings. Each measurement appears only once on the dial. The stitch width finger is built into the machine under the needle plate and located here on the machine. For consistent cutting of extra heavy fabric, lock the movable blade here. Use the Allen screwdriver and turn the screw clockwise to tighten it. Be sure to loosen the screw when you return to normal sewing. The pressure control is located on top of the machine. Adjustable settings range from 1 to 6. Normal sewing pressure is 5 and recommended for most fabrics. Lift the presser foot to open the upper side door. The light bulb is located here. The most commonly used accessories, like tweezers, are conveniently located inside the side door. Here you will find the automatic needle threader, Allen screwdriver, a package of needles, and the 2-thread converter. The accessory box contains 4 spool caps, an extra movable blade, a spanner to change the blade, a lint brush, a bottle of oil, the snap-on thread guide, tension release clips, a quilting guide, and the F-foot. The tension release clips are to be inserted under this guide here to release the tension when sewing with heavier decorative threads. The extra thread guide snaps onto the antenna guide to prevent decorative threads from tangling with one another. The 744 comes with 4 foam pads and a waste tray. The foam pads prevent decorative threads from twisting around the spool pin. The waste tray fits on the front of the machine. The sewing table is used when sewing the chain stitch and cover hem, which will appear later in this tape. The standard snap-on overlock plate is located on the front door and covers the loopers. A vinyl dust cover comes with the 744. The cover has pockets to easily transport the accessory box, foot control, and cord. Let's start with the Safety 4 thread stitch. When learning to thread, we suggest using the thread color that matches the thread guides. Place the serger cone threads on the spool pins, starting on the left with blue, red, yellow, and green. Now it's time to identify the symbols on the program panel. The stitch programs are listed here by stitch, number, and name. Turn this dial to select a new stitch program. The program number is displayed here. DF refers to the differential feed setting. SL refers to the stitch length setting. Both control levers are conveniently located on the front of the machine. The differential feed range is 0.5, 1.0, 1.5, and 2. The stitch length range is from 0.5 millimeters, the shortest, to 4 millimeters, the longest. L0, L1, and L2 refer to the left needle positions, and R1 and R2 refer to the right needle positions. Needle positions are indicated by a color bar appearing in the correct needle position or positions. The scissors, needle, and fabric symbol refer to the cutting width. The cutting width for program number 1 is 5.5. Turn the cutting width dial located here to the appropriate setting. Notice some numbers are red while others are blue. The color-coding cutting widths correspond to the color-coded needle tension dials for right or left needle placement. The red numbers indicate stitch width when using the right needle or needles only, while the blue numbers indicate stitch width for the left needles. The position of the cutting blade is indicated with an arrow pointing up for working position and pointing down for non-working position. The next box refers to the usage of the upper looper. An arrow pointing up is used to indicate the upper looper being in a working position. A downward pointing arrow tells us to disengage the upper looper. The next box and symbol illustrate the use of the 2-thread converter on the upper looper. A down arrow appearing in the box indicates the 2-thread converter on the upper looper. A white box means the converter will not be used. In the next box, the divided illustration shows the use of the extension table and presser foot position. The upper portion of the box is white to indicate the standard overlock plate and to set the presser foot lever to B. In program number 10, the upper portion of the box is black, which indicates the use of the extension table and to set the presser foot lever to A. The last symbol that appears illustrates the stitch width finger position. The up arrow tells us that the finger is up in a working position. The down arrow tells us to disengage the finger. We will learn more about the stitch width finger later. Let's get ready to sew. We will begin with program number 1, the safety 4-thread stitch. The safety 4-thread stitch is a 3-thread overlock stitch in which a second needle is added. The second needle thread reinforces the durability and strength of the stitch, but the stitch retains its elasticity. This stitch is appropriate for stretch fabrics such as lycra, cotton lycra blends, sweatshirt fleece, and interlocks. It's time to set up and thread your machine. Refer to the threading chart on the inside cover or in the instruction manual if needed. Let's review the program display panel to set the machine up. The display tells us that the differential feed setting is 1.0 and stitch length is 2.5. Needle positions are R1 and R2. The cutting width dial is set at 5.5. The movable cutting blade is in an up position indicated by the up arrow. The upper looper symbol shows that the upper looper is in an up position. The foot is in the B position. The stitch width finger is up and engaged. Open the front door. Locate the threading chart for the safety 4-thread stitch. This chart tells me to thread the yellow or upper looper guide first. This is indicated with the number 1 placed next to the threading path. Place the thread through the open guide on the antenna, place it under the clip here, and lay it in the tension discs. Make sure the thread is seated in the tension discs. Place the thread behind this guide and this guide. It will automatically lay here in the groove. Pass the thread through the guides here and here. The next guide, located here, requires you bring the thread up, over, and down, slipping it into proper placement. Now thread the eye of the upper looper. Pass the thread to the left under the presser foot. Make sure the thread is not caught in front of the lower looper. Next in the sequence is the lower looper. Follow the green threading guides. The same guides are used here and here. Pass the thread through this guide. Now thread the lower looper. Turn the flywheel toward you to bring the lower looper to the far right. Press down here to expose the self-threading guide of the lower looper. Slip the thread into the guide and thread the eye of the looper. The guide will engage itself upon sewing. Pass the thread over the upper looper and under the presser foot to the left. The diagram indicates that the blue needle is next in the threading sequence. Place the blue needle thread, or R1, through the open guide of the antenna and under the clip. Lay the thread in the tension discs and on the right side of this guide. Pass the thread through the slot in the take-up lever cover. Place the thread in the far left groove here and here, then behind the guide directly above the needle. Next we'll thread the red needle path, or R2. Pass the thread through the antenna guide, under the clip, and lay it into the tension discs and on the right side of this guide. Pass the thread through the slot in the take-up lever and place the thread in the guides here and here. Turn the flywheel toward you until the needles are in the highest position and the upper looper is clear of the needles. Remove the needle clamp cover. Grasp the needle clamp with your thumb and forefinger. press and hold in the red release button and pull the needle clamp toward you. The clamp will be at a 45-degree angle. Now thread the blue needle followed by the red needle. To place the needle clamp back into a working position, simply push down on the clamp base with your thumb. Replace the needle clamp cover. Place the needle threads to the back and under the presser foot. Threading is now complete. Check to make sure you have not missed any guides and close the front cover. Turn the flywheel toward you to form a few stitches before stepping on the foot control. Place 2 layers of a medium weight woven fabric under the presser foot. Sew the fabric and check to see if your stitch is forming properly. An overlock stitch is formed by the use of the upper looper, lower looper, and 1 or 2 needles. The upper looper lays the thread on top of the fabric, while the lower looper lays the thread on the underside of the fabric. The 2 loopers work back and forth as the needle catches the loop to form a stretchable overlock stitch. The cutting blade trims away excess fabric before the stitch is formed. The top view of the overlock stitch looks like a diagonal serpentine stitch. The needle threads look like a regular straight stitch on the sewing machine. The underside of the stitch resembles small triangle shapes. Notice the tiny dots. This is the tightened loop of the needle thread. A balanced stitch will lock the upper and lower looper threads at the edge of the fabric. The safety 4-thread stitch is perfect for applying ribbing. Fold a piece of knit fabric in half and cut a neckline from the fold to the top. Fold the ribbing in half, align the raw edges, and sew. This provides a clean, stretchable finish. The stretch knit stitch has the same characteristics as the safety 4-thread. The stretch knit uses both differential feed and the stitch length settings to prevent knit wear from stretching while sewing. This stitch is ideal for the construction of sweater knits and for applying ribbing to knit necklines, cuffs, or waistbands. Let's sew a seam in this lofty sweater knit. Notice how wavy the seam looks? This will not work for seaming a stretchable knit fabric. The stretch knit stitch is within program number 1 and highlighted in blue. Stitch settings will appear in blue. The differential feed setting is 1.5. Adjust to this setting. Sew the sweater knit again on the opposite side. Look at the improvement with the use of the differential feed system. The differential feed system on an overlock is a 2-part feed dog system, which feeds the fabric at different ratios. The front part of the feed dogs pushes more or less fabric under the foot than the rear part of the feed dogs is feeding out. In the example of the sweater knit, the front feed dogs were pushing more fabric in than the back feed dogs were pushing out, so it prevented the sweater knit from stretching out of shape. When serging on sheer or lightweight fabrics that tend to pucker, set the differential feed at 0.5. The front feed dogs will pull less in while the back is pushing more out. Essentially, the fabric is being held taut while serging to prevent puckers. Advance to program number 2, Overlock 3. The Overlock 3 is used to finish the edges of light to medium weight fabrics, such as silk, crepe de chine, and cotton. It is acceptable to finish a single layer and then seam on a sewing machine, or sew the seam and then finish the edges. Use it to prevent raw edges from raveling when pre-washing fabrics that are loosely woven or have a tendency to ravel. Let's review the program panel for setup. The Overlock 3 is highlighted in yellow. The differential feed is at 1 and the stitch length is at 2.5. Notice the needle is in the R2 position. We can easily convert to the Overlock 3. Clip the blue needle thread or R1 thread. Now we will need to remove the needle. To do this, push and hold the tension release button and pull the red thread out about 1.5 inches. Remove the needle clamp release cover, press in and hold the red release button, tilt the needle clamp forward. Now we will remove the needle from the R1 needle position. Return the clamp to normal position. Return the needle clamp release cover to normal position. Remove the slack from the red needle thread. Turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. Serge 2 layers of cotton together and press the seam to one side. Next, serge the edges of the piece of silk or finer fabric. Located in program number 2, you will find the 3-thread wide. This stitch is ideal for an edge finish on medium to heavyweight fabrics, making it ideal for fitted garments where you want the seam to lay flat. The 3-thread wide stitch is highlighted in blue. Notice the only adjustment that we need to make is the needle position. The needle will need to be moved from R2 to the R1 position. Stitch on a single layer of medium weight cotton and wool. Notice the nice edge finish. Another use for this stitch is hemming on medium to heavyweight fabrics. Adjust the stitch length to 4. Fold the hemline and press. Next, fold the hem allowance back against the right side of the fabric, creating a soft fold in the garment, with about a 1/4 inch hem allowance extending beyond the fold. Place the fold under the presser foot and stitch. Just allow the needle to catch only a thread or two along the fold. The blades will trim the edge of the hem allowance and the stitches will encase the raw edge. When the hem is complete, simply fold the hem down to its normal position and press it flat. Advance to program number 3, 3-thread flatlock. 3 threads form an unbalanced stitch that can be pulled open into a flat seam. The seam resembles the exposed stitch seen on ready-to-wear knit sportswear. Use this stitch as a decorative accent or for construction on bulky knitwear. Following the program panel, set the differential feed to 1 and the stitch length to 2. The needle remains in the R1 position. As you move across the program panel, notice the cutting blade is down. Open both the side and front doors. Push in the silver knob, located here, and rotate the blade down. Now close both doors. Now we're ready to sew. Form a few stitches by hand by turning the flywheel toward you. Take a piece of t-shirt knit or sweatshirt fleece. Fold wrong sides together. Using the needle plate as your guide, place the fold along this edge. Stitch along the fold while guiding the fabric along the needle plate. The stitches will appear very loose. Gently pull at both sides of the fabric. This will open up the stitching and the fabric and seam will lie flat. Advance to program number 4 to try a 2-thread technique, flatlock 2. In this stitch, the needle and lower looper threads form a stitch that can be pulled flat. Common uses of this stitch are for hemming and construction of undergarments. Let's review the program panel for setup. Differential feed is at 1 and the stitch length is 2. The needle is in the R1 needle position. The cutting blade is down, the upper looper remains up, and the 2-thread converter is placed on the upper looper. Since only the red and green threading paths will be used, we will need to clip and remove the upper looper thread. Clip the upper looper or yellow thread at the eye of the looper and at the antenna. Remove the thread. Place the tip of the converter in the eye of the upper looper and slide the converter saddle over the back of the upper looper arm. Be careful not to catch the lower looper thread when placing the converter on. Hand turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. Take a piece of sweatshirt fleece and place the wrong sides together. Use the edge of the needle plate as your guide. Stitch along the fold. Look closely at how the 2-thread converter works. The converter allows the lower looper thread to be carried to the needle, and then the thread is caught by the needle. Gently pull the fabric apart, and the seam will lay flat. If using bulky fabric like sweatshirt fleece and using the flat lock on the fold, guide the folded edge about 1/4 inch to the left of the needle plate edge. This causes the thread to loop off the fabric edge and allows the fabric to lay flat within the stitch. Placing wrong sides of the fabric together allows the trellis side of the stitch to be on the outside. Place right sides of the fabric together if you want the latter side of the stitch to be visible on the outside. This technique can also be done on the fold of the fabric, which allows you to make decorative stripes without even cutting the fabric. Advance to program number 5, Overcast 2. The Overcast 2 is the ideal seam finish for finer fabrics such as silk and batiste. Consisting only of the lower looper and a needle thread, this particular seam finish provides coverage without adding bulk to a seam. As we follow the program panel, you will find only a few changes from the Flatlock 2 to the Overcast 2. The needle will need to be moved from R1 to R2. The cutting blade is in an up position and the cutting width is set at 5.5. To place the cutting blade into a working position, open both the front and side doors. Push in the silver knob located here. Rotate the blade up and close both doors. Hand turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. Place a single layer of lightweight fabric such as silk or fine cotton under the presser foot and sew. Notice how the lower looper thread is carried to the top side of the fabric and caught by the needle and needle thread. Compare this stitch to the 3-thread overcast from the previous sample. For the 2-thread overcast wide, we will stay on program number 5. The 2-thread overcast wide is highlighted in blue. The Overcast 2 wide is an ideal seam finish for medium weight fabrics. We will need to move the needle from the R2 to the R1 position. Hand turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. Place a single layer of medium weight fabric under the presser foot and sew. Compare this to the Overcast 2. The 2-thread converter will need to be removed from the upper looper. Grasp the converter and press the tip away from the upper looper eye. Now pull the converter up. Return it to the storage area located in the side door. Advance to program number 6, Narrow Hem 3. The narrow hem is an attractive hem finish most commonly seen on such items as napkins, scarves, garments, and home dec items. This stitch consists of 3 threads that are balanced and form a narrow edge finish, making it ideal for crisp, sheer, and light to medium weight fabrics. The program panel tells us to adjust the differential feed to 1, the stitch length to 1. We will need to move the needle from the R1 position to the R2 position. This is indicated in yellow. The cutting width is at 5.5. The cutting blade is in an up position. The upper looper is in the up position. The 2-thread converter is not in use. The foot is also in position B. The stitch width finger is in a down position. This is indicated by the down arrow. To disengage the stitch width finger, turn the flywheel toward you. Align the arrows, bringing the needle bar to the highest position. Open the front door. Pull the silver knob located here to the right and rotate the finger toward you to a down position. The last change to be made is to thread the upper looper. When threading the upper looper, make sure that the upper looper thread is behind the lower looper. Now turn the flywheel by hand to form a few stitches. Place a single layer of lightweight fabric under the presser foot and sew. Compare the narrow hem to the overlock 3 and 3-thread wide. Each one is a perfectly balanced stitch, a width for every fabric weight. Let's try one more 3-thread stitch, the rolled hem. Advance to program number 7. The rolled hem is a beautiful edge finish for lightweight and soft fabrics. The stitch consists of 3 threads forming an unbalanced stitch, most commonly used to finish the edges of napkins, scarves, silk garments, and even dancewear. Let's review the program panel. Notice there are no changes to be made. The rolled hem 3 has the exact same settings as the narrow hem 3. Place a single layer of lightweight fabric under the presser foot and sew. Remember, the tensions are automatically set when the stitch is selected. Let's take a closer look at how a rolled hem stitch looks. The upper looper, or yellow thread, has rolled to the back side. The lower looper, or green thread, is barely visible, and the fabric is rolled inside the stitch. Run your finger along the edges of the rolled hem 3 and the narrow hem 3. Did you feel the ridge in the rolled hem 3? Let's review the stitches that we've learned so far. The safety 4-thread stitch and how to handle stretch knit fabrics. Overlock 3, 3-thread wide, flatlock 3, flatlock 2, overcast 2, overcast 2 wide, narrow hem 3, and the rolled hem 3. Advance to program number 8, 2-thread rolled hem. The 2-thread rolled hem is the best hem finish for lightweight silk and soft chiffon fabrics. This stitch consists of the lower looper and 1 needle thread that form a stitch that rolls the fabric before enclosing the edge. Following the program panel, notice that the differential feed and stitch length are the same as the previous stitch. As we continue to follow the program panel, notice the only change from the 3-thread rolled hem to the 2-thread rolled hem is the upper looper thread is not in use, and the 2-thread converter is placed on the upper looper. Clip the upper looper thread near the tension disc and at the eye of the looper. Remove the thread. Place the 2-thread converter on the upper looper. Be careful not to catch the lower looper thread when placing the converter on. Test sew on fine cotton or sheer fabric. Let's compare the 2-thread rolled hem to the 3-thread rolled hem. Notice the difference between the two hems. The 2-thread rolled hem is much finer and has a softer hand than the 3-thread rolled hem. This is due to the upper looper thread being taken away. Advance to program number 9, the stretch wrap. The stretch wrapped stitch was developed for stretchy fabrics, making it perfect for fabrics such as lycra or lycra blend. This is a stretch stitch that uses 2 needle threads and a lower looper. The stretch wrap has maximum stretch, with the second needle increasing the stitch's durability. Clip and remove all threads before making any physical changes to the machine. Refer to the program panel. Differential feed is 1 and stitch length is 2. The needles are in the R1 and R2 positions. Cutting width is 5.5. The cutting blade is engaged and the upper looper is in the up position. The next box indicates that the 2-thread converter will be needed for this stitch. No change is needed. The next change to be made is the stitch width finger. The program panel indicates an arrow pointing in the up position. We will need to engage the stitch width finger. To do this, bring the needles to the highest position by realigning the arrows located on the flywheel. Open the front door, pull the knob located here out, and rotate the stitch width finger up. The threading chart in the operator's manual indicates the threading sequence and paths. Let's thread, start with the lower looper, followed by the blue needle thread, and finally the red needle thread. Form a few stitches by hand, turning the flywheel toward you. Since the stretch wrap stitch was developed for stretchy fabrics, let's test sew the stitch on some swimwear fabric. Notice how the stitch stretches with the fabric and recovers to the seam's original position. These features make this ideal for stretch fabrics such as lycra and lycra blends. The stretch wrap looks similar to the 4-thread overlock. You see 2 needle threads on top, the blue and the red. The green lower looper thread loops on the top and wraps around to the backside. This makes an incredibly stretchy seam. It's perfect for active wear such as swimwear, leotards, and bodysuits. Advance to program number 10 to sew the triple cover hem, highlighted in yellow. This stitch is a 5mm wide cover hem that uses 3 needle threads and the chain looper to form 3 lines of what looks like parallel straight stitches. Clip and remove all threads. Remove the 2-thread converter. Let's take a look at the program panel. The differential feed is set at 1, stitch length is set at 3, needle positions are at L0, L1, and L2. Cutting width is at 3.5 and the cutting blade is in a down position. The upper looper is placed in a down or non-functioning position. This is indicated by the down arrow. Open the front door. Locate the release lever. This is located on the bottom right side and is indicated with symbols of the upper looper. Turn the flywheel toward you until the upper looper is in the lowest position. The lever is in the right side position. Push down and move the lever to the left side position. Turn the flywheel toward you. Notice the upper looper does not move. The upper looper is now disengaged. The black shaded triangle indicates the use of the extension table. To remove the overlock table, grasp here and pull toward you. To attach the sewing table, slide the table onto the front cover with the tab and the notch fitting here and here. Now push the plate into place. There will be a slight popping noise. This indicates that the plate is securely in position. The second half of this box indicates the foot position. For the triple cover hem, the foot is in the A position. Push the lever to set it on the A position. Refer to the threading chart in the instruction manual. You will be using the blue, red, yellow, and green threading guides. Notice that you will be threading the chain looper, not the lower looper. Pass the green thread through the antenna guide, under the clip, in the tension disc, down the long groove, and to the right of this silver hook. The next several guides are a combination of brown squares. Thread the 3 guides here, here, and here. Thread the remaining guide here. Next, thread the chain looper. Bring the needles to the lowest position to move the chain looper to the far right. Push this lever up to fully expose the eye of the looper. Bring the thread behind the looper. Slide the thread down the looper until it catches in the guide located here. Now thread the eye of the looper from front to back, bringing the thread forward. Clip the thread, leaving a 3-inch tail. The looper will automatically engage itself when the first stitch is taken. Next, thread the blue needle. Pass the blue thread through the antenna guide, under the clip, in the tension disc, and to the right of the silver hook. Continue passing the thread to the left into the slot of the take-up lever cover. Place the thread in the far left position of this guide, under this guide, here, and to the far left. Slide the thread under this guide, and finally, thread the needle. Place the thread on top of the presser foot and to the left. Now thread the red path, following the same threading route as the blue. Place the thread in the center of the guides here and here, before passing the thread through the eye of the needle. Again, place the thread on top of the presser foot and to the left. Now thread the yellow path, following the same threading route as the blue and the red. Place the thread in the center of the guides here and here, before passing the thread through the eye of the needle. Again, place the thread on top of the presser foot and to the left. Place 2 layers of a knit fabric under the foot, making sure the needles penetrate the fabric when the machine takes the first stitch. Hand turn the flywheel to form a few stitches before stepping on the foot control. The The cover hem wide is part of program number 10. This is the second of the 3 cover hems on the 744. The cover hem wide consists of 2 needle threads that resemble twin needlework on the surface and an overlock stitch on the underside. This stitch measures 5 millimeters in width and is most commonly used for the hemming of knit garments. Review the program panel for changes. The needles are in the L0 and L2 needle positions. Only the blue, red, and green threading paths are used. Clip and remove the yellow thread. Push and hold the tension release lever. Grasp the blue and the red needle threads and pull out about 1.5 inches. Remove the needle clamp cover and tilt the clamp. Remove the needle from the L2 position and move the needle from the L1 to the L2 position. Place the needle clamp back into position and replace the needle clamp cover. Remove the slack from the needle threads. Place 2 layers of knit fabric under the presser foot and sew. The next cover hem stitch is the narrow cover hem. Review the program panel. The narrow cover hem is highlighted in pink. The only adjustment is the position of the needles. Move the needle in the L0 position to the L1 position. Place 2 layers of fabric under the presser foot and sew. Take a look at the triple cover hem wide, and cover hem narrow. Notice the difference in width and appearance. Turn the samples over and examine the underside. See how the thread is carried from needle to needle? This is what gives the stitch the stretch and makes it ideal for hemming on stretch fabrics or stretch blends. A decorative way to use this stitch would be to sew so that the underside of the stitch, the loops, appear on the right side. To do this, simply place your fabric right side down. This is an attractive, fun, and easy way to hem a knit garment. Now it's time to learn a few cover hem techniques found in ready-to-wear. A majority of ready-to-wear garments sew the hem flat, then serge the side seam. This method is ideal for small or narrow cuffs. To prepare your hem, press up the hem allowance. An easy way to determine where to position the fabric is simply to turn the garment over, wrong side up, right side down. Notice the markings on the sewing table and the markings on the foot. The needles match up with the markings on the foot. Align the raw edge of the hem with the furthest left needle position. Where the fold of the fabric lies on the sewing table will be your guide. Place the fabric wrong side down and align the hem edge with the guide mark on the sewing table. Serging the cover hem in the round can be achieved with 2 popular methods. For method number 1, press the hem up and place the fabric under the presser foot. Stitch around the hem. Upon reaching the original starting point, overlap the stitches about 1/2 inch and stop. Give the needle thread a little slack. Now cut the needle threads. Remove the fabric from the machine and secure the needle threads. For method 2, prepare the hem in the same manner as method number 1. Stitch around the hem Overlap the original starting point at about 1.5 inches. Stop, making sure the needles are in the up position. Next, turn the flywheel toward you to bring the needles to the lowest position in the fabric. Carefully reverse the flywheel by turning the flywheel backward until the needles are in the highest position. Lift the presser foot and push and hold the tension release lever. Firmly pull the fabric and threads from under the presser foot. Cut the threads, being careful not to pull on the chain looper thread. To secure the threads, stitch from the top of the hem to the bottom with a conventional sewing machine and clip the threads. This technique prevents the needle thread from wrapping around the chain looper, so they will pull freely when the tension release is pressed. This is the only time in which the flywheel is to be turned backward. The final stitch in Program 10 is the chain stitch. Referred to as a two-thread chain stitch or double chain stitch, this stitch uses only one needle and the chain looper to form a straight stitch. The top side of the stitch resembles a straight stitch, and the underside thread forms loops. This creates a stable stitch with a slight amount of stretch to it, a feature that is not present in the straight stitch sewn on a conventional sewing machine. The most common uses of this stitch are construction on woven fabrics, creating stable seams in knitwear, and as a great basting stitch. Clip and remove all threads. Review the program panel for setup. The chain stitch is indicated in bright yellow. Differential feed is at 1 and the stitch length is at 3. The needle is in the L2 position. Cutting width is 3.5 and the cutting blade is down. The upper looper is disengaged. The foot is in position A with the extension table on. The stitch width finger is down. Open the front door. Located on the inside is a threading chart for the chain stitch, or refer to the instruction manual. Notice that only the green and blue paths will be used. Starting with the green thread, pass the thread through the antenna guide, under the clip, in the tension disc, down the long groove, and to the right of this guide. Thread the 3 guides located here, here, and here. They are indicated by brown squares. Thread the remaining guides here and here. Now thread the chain looper. Bring the needles to the lowest position. This will move the chain looper to the far right. Push the release lever located here. This will fully expose the eye of the chain looper. Bring the thread behind the looper. Slide the thread down the looper until it is caught in the guide located here. Now thread the eye of the looper from front to back, bringing the thread forward. Then clip it, leaving about a 3-inch tail. The looper will automatically engage itself when the first stitch is taken. Thread the needle following the blue guides. Pass the thread through the antenna guide, under the clip, in the tension disc, and to the right of the silver hook. Place the thread under this guide and pass it into this slot and down on the other side, allowing the thread to slip into the check spring. Place the thread in each of the guides located here, here, and here. Thread the eye of the needle and place the tail to the left, leaving it on top of the presser foot. Place 2 layers of medium weight woven fabric under the presser foot. making sure that the needle penetrates the fabric as it starts to sew. Turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. Once the chain has been formed, there's no need to place the fabric under the foot. The extension table provides a large surface for sewing anywhere on the fabric with the chain stitch. You can use the chain stitch to sew a traditional open seam. To use as a basting stitch, simply pull it out from the end of the seam with the chain looper thread. Lock the stitch by cutting into the loop and pulling on the needle thread. Because serger sewing involves fabric cutting, lint and dust build up quickly. It's important to clean these areas regularly. Proper cleaning and oiling are essential to ensure maximum machine performance. Open the front door and disengage the moving blade. Remove the presser foot. To do this, press in the lever located here, behind the shank. The foot will drop off. Pull the presser foot lever toward you again to maximize the extra lift. Slide the foot off the machine. To remove the needle plate, push up on the release lever located here and slide it off. Using the lint brush, remove any lint or fiber accumulation around the feed dogs and the cutting blade. Place the needle plate back onto the machine. Align the needle plate with the feed dogs and the needle plate screw located here. When in position, press down on the front section and the needle plate will snap back into place. To reattach the presser foot, place the foot underneath the presser foot area and lower the needle bar. The foot will snap back into place. Next, place the movable cutting blade back into position. For oiling, place a drop of oil above and below the oiling arrows located here. Oiling should be performed every 8 hours of actual sewing time. Remember to always take your serger to an authorized Elna dealership at least once a year for a checkup. There are many optional accessories available for the 744. Accessories like the adjustable bias binder, piping foot, tape guide, belt loop foot, multi-purpose foot, and gathering foot, just to mention a few. There are also 3 books available that contain project ideas and instructions, making the most of your decorative serging accessories, making the most of the cover hem, and making the most of your basic serger accessories. Everyone at Elna wishes you many pleasurable hours of fun and exciting serging with your new Elna Serger. Be sure to visit your Elna retailer for more information as well as demonstrations on Elna's complete line of sewing products for the home. We invite you to visit us anytime at www.elnausa.com for information on other Elna products, accessories, and projects.